The Israel-Hezbollah conflict, a long simmering tension in the Middle East, has erupted once again. This conflict, rooted in decades of historical, political, and territorial disputes, has seen numerous flare-ups over the years, each time bringing the region to the brink of a larger war. Both sides have engaged in intense exchanges of fire, shattering a period of relative calm. The sound of artillery and rockets has once again become a grim soundtrack for those living near the border, disrupting the fragile peace that had been holding. The latest escalation marks a dangerous turn of events, raising fears of a wider regional conflict with unpredictable consequences. Analysts warn that this could draw in other regional powers, further complicating an already volatile situation. The situation remains highly volatile, with reports of attacks and counterattacks emerging daily. Each new incident adds fuel to the fire, making it increasingly difficult for diplomatic efforts to take hold and de-escalate the situation. Hezbollah, a powerful Shiite militant group based in Lebanon, has been a constant thorn in Israel's side for decades. The group's military capabilities have grown significantly, making it a formidable adversary in the region. The group, backed by Iran, vows to fight for the liberation of Palestinian territories and sees Israel as its arch-enemy. Iran's support has been crucial in bolstering Hezbollah's military strength, providing them with advanced weaponry and training. Israel, on the other hand, views Hezbollah as a terrorist organization and a direct threat to its national security. The Israeli government has repeatedly stated that it will take all necessary measures to neutralize this threat, including preemptive strikes and extensive military operations. The two sides have clashed repeatedly over the years, with devastating consequences for civilians on both sides of the border. Homes, schools, and hospitals have not been spared, leading to a humanitarian crisis that affects thousands of innocent lives. The recent flare-up began with Israeli airstrikes on what it claimed were Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. These strikes were intended to cripple Hezbollah's military infrastructure and send a clear message of deterrence. Israel said the strikes were in response to rocket fire from Lebanon into its territory, which it blamed on Hezbollah. The rockets caused damage to buildings and infrastructure, heightening the sense of urgency and danger among Israeli citizens. Hezbollah denied responsibility for the initial rocket fire, but vowed to retaliate against any Israeli aggression. The group's leadership issued statements condemning the airstrikes and promising a strong response, further escalating the rhetoric on both sides. The situation escalated rapidly, with both sides exchanging fire across the border. The tit-for-tat attacks have created a cycle of violence that shows no signs of abating, each side determined to outdo the other in a show of strength. Israel has conducted numerous airstrikes on Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah military infrastructure, weapons depots, and command centers. These strikes aim to degrade Hezbollah's ability to launch attacks and to disrupt their operational capabilities. Hezbollah, in turn, has launched volleys of rockets into northern Israel, aiming at both military and civilian targets. The indiscriminate nature of these attacks has caused widespread fear and damage, affecting the daily lives of many Israelis. The fighting has caused widespread fear and uncertainty. Families are forced to spend nights in bomb shelters, and the constant threat of attack looms over daily activities, creating a pervasive atmosphere of anxiety. Residents on both sides of the border have been forced to seek shelter or flee their homes. The displacement of people adds another layer of tragedy to the conflict as families are torn apart and communities are disrupted. The international community has expressed grave concern over the escalating violence and urged both sides to show restraint. Diplomatic efforts are underway to broker a ceasefire, but the path to peace remains fraught with challenges and uncertainties. Hezbollah's response to the Israeli airstrikes was swift and fierce. The militant group, known for its resilience and strategic prowess, wasted no time in retaliating against what it perceived as an unprovoked act of aggression. The group unleashed a barrage of rockets into northern Israel, targeting towns and cities near the Lebanese border. This sudden escalation caught many off guard, as the rockets rained down with relentless intensity, causing widespread alarm and chaos. The rocket attacks, which Hezbollah said were in retaliation for the Israeli aggression, sowed panic and disruption across northern Israel. Streets that were once bustling with daily life quickly turned into scenes of chaos, as civilians scrambled to find safety amidst the onslaught. Air raid sirens wailed across the region, sending residents scrambling for bomb shelters. The piercing sound of the sirens became a grim reminder of the ever-present threat of conflict, as families huddled together in fear, hoping for the best but preparing for the worst. Schools, businesses, and government offices were forced to close as the rockets rained down. The normally vibrant communities were eerily silent, with empty streets and shuttered shops painting a stark picture of the impact of the conflict on daily life. Israeli authorities reported multiple rocket impacts, causing damage to buildings and infrastructure. Emergency responders worked tirelessly to assess and repair the damage, but the scale of destruction was a sobering testament to the ferocity of the attacks. While Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted many of the incoming rockets, some managed to get through, highlighting the limitations of even the most sophisticated defense systems. The Iron Dome, though highly effective, could not provide complete protection, leaving some areas vulnerable to attack. The attacks demonstrated Hezbollah's ability to strike deep inside Israeli territory, despite years of Israeli efforts to degrade its capabilities. This show of strength was a clear indication that Hezbollah remained a formidable force, capable of challenging Israel's military might. Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, addressed his supporters in a televised speech, vowing to continue the fight against Israel. His words were defiant and resolute as he rallied his followers and reaffirmed their commitment to the cause. He accused Israel of trying to drag the region into a wider war and warned that Hezbollah would not hesitate to respond with even greater force if necessary. Nasrallah's speech was a stark warning to Israel and a call to arms for his supporters, emphasizing the high stakes of the conflict. "We will not allow the enemy to impose new equations on Lebanon or the resistance," Nasrallah declared. His words resonated deeply with his audience, who cheered and applauded, showing their unwavering support for Hezbollah's stance. The rocket attack sent a clear message that Hezbollah was prepared to escalate the conflict. The group's actions were a bold statement of their readiness to engage in a prolonged and intense confrontation if necessary. The group's willingness to target Israeli civilians raised concerns about a spiral of violence with devastating consequences for both sides. The humanitarian impact of the conflict was becoming increasingly apparent, with innocent lives caught in the crossfire and communities left to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of the attacks. The escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has sent shockwaves throughout the Middle East, causing widespread concern and anxiety among the nations in the region. The intensity of the clashes has not only affected the immediate areas, but has also raised alarms about the potential for a much larger and more devastating conflict. The fear of a wider regional conflagration is palpable, with many countries in the Middle East ramping up their military readiness in anticipation of possible spillover effects. The map of conflict zones is expanding, and the military buildup in various countries is a clear indication of the heightened state of alert. The involvement of Iran, Hezbollah's main backer, adds another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation. Iran's support for Hezbollah is not just limited to rhetoric, it includes substantial military aid and strategic guidance, making the conflict more intricate and dangerous. The specter of a broader conflict, drawing in regional powers and potentially igniting a wider sectarian war, looms large. The alliances and enmities in the Middle East are deeply rooted and multifaceted, and any escalation could trigger a chain reaction involving multiple countries and factions. Iran, which has provided Hezbollah with substantial military and financial support for decades, has condemned the Israeli strikes and pledged its unwavering support for the group. This alliance has been a cornerstone of Iran's regional strategy, and its commitment to Hezbollah remains steadfast despite international pressure. Iranian officials have warned Israel against escalating the conflict, threatening a crushing response if its interests are threatened. The rhetoric from Tehran has been increasingly belligerent, with promises of severe retaliation if the situation continues to deteriorate. The potential for the conflict to spill over into Syria, where Iran has a significant military presence, is particularly worrying. Syria, already ravaged by years of civil war, could become another battleground in this escalating conflict, further complicating the humanitarian crisis in the region. Israel has conducted numerous airstrikes inside Syria in recent years, targeting Iranian-backed militias and weapons shipments destined for Hezbollah. These actions have been part of Israel's broader strategy to curb Iran's influence in the region and prevent the transfer of advanced weaponry to its adversaries. Any miscalculation or escalation of hostilities could easily drag Syria into the conflict, further destabilizing the region. The fragile balance in Syria could be tipped, leading to a new wave of violence and displacement that would have dire consequences for the entire Middle East. The international community is acutely aware of the risks of a wider war and has stepped up diplomatic efforts to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. Diplomatic channels are being utilized to their fullest extent, with world leaders engaging in intense discussions to find a peaceful resolution. World leaders have called for restraint and dialogue, urging both sides to de-escalate the violence and return to the negotiating table. The emphasis is on finding a diplomatic solution that addresses the underlying issues and prevents further bloodshed. However, with tensions running high and neither side showing signs of backing down, the prospects for a peaceful resolution remain uncertain. The entrenched positions and deep-seated animosities make it difficult to envision a quick or easy solution. The region is on edge, bracing for the possibility of a wider conflict with far-reaching consequences. The potential for a broader war is a constant threat, and the stakes are incredibly high for all parties involved. The international community continues to watch closely, hoping for a breakthrough that will bring lasting peace to the troubled region.